Chapter 051, Odd Duo. Ari had gotten a little whiny over the fact that even the other cats wanted to continue the exploration of the snowy mountain range in the hope of finding something new and interesting. The jaguar was heavily against that idea because she really hates the cold. As a result, Sophia introduced a new guideline to the group's traveling formation. She suggested that not all have to be traveling together all the time, and if someone wants to stay in the domain, the others could still be out and exploring. Well, I certainly wasn't expecting it to turn out like this. On the following day, when most of the group returned to the regular world to explore the mountains, Ari immediately took advantage of the newly introduced guidelines and decided to stay in the cottage to evade the cold she hated so much. Do you not wish my company? The jaguar wasn't the only one who stayed behind, as she was currently sitting together with Fen in the cottage's living room. That's absolutely not what I meant. She shook her head a few times. Do you really dislike the cold so much that you also decided to stay behind? No, it's not quite on your level. I mean, you really made quite the scene yesterday. Ahaha, she could only awkwardly scratch her cheek. I don't exactly enjoy it, though. My fur lets me tolerate it, but if I can avoid it, I will avoid it. I mean, unless it leads to something interesting, but I don't think that mountain range will lead to anything too big in the next few days. I see. Also, Sophia and you all are great, but I need a break every now and then. The group's a bit too hyper to be with 24/7. I know I'm oftentimes part of the problem when it comes to getting excited, but I hope you understand what I mean. I'm sorry about ruining your day off, Ben. It's fine. Fen shook his head. You're the one I'd mind the least keeping me company when I need a break. Really? She tilted her head. How do you know? Actually, I think this is the first time since we met that it's just the two of us. Now that you mention it, that might actually be the cause. He nodded once, before continuing. You're easily the most grounded one out of the group, though. I doubt you'd be the cause to ruin my day off. Happy to hear that someone still thinks I'm normal. Oh, I wouldn't go that far. The wolf shook his head a few times. Anyway, do you have any plans for today, or were you just taking it easy? Fen decided to not further elaborate on the previous topic. She stared at him for a moment because of the earlier jab, but Ari eventually decided to let it go. I haven't really thought about it. I'm just happy not being in that nightmarish cold today. Oh, maybe I'll visit the bioluminescent forest we began creating the other day. I had completely forgotten about that already. Ahaha. Too much is going on lately, huh? That is very true. What about you? Ari kept looking at him. Any plans on your end? It wouldn't be the first day I happily slept through completely. You really enjoy your days off to the fullest, huh? For some, doing absolutely nothing is the very definition of holidays. The jaguar didn't seem too convinced. I've also been contemplating putting more work into the biome Sophia gave me to play with. I might start it for real today. Oh. The jaguar thought that would be more fitting for the occasion. Wait, what was your biome again? I can't really remember what it was. Just a good old deciduous forest. I feel like something basic might be pretty nice. I also like the feel inside those forests, so I thought about making my own. Deciduous, those are the trees that lose their leaves in fall, right? Exactly. He nodded. My version will be evergreen, though. Summer is my favorite season in that kind of forest because I like the woody smell inside when it's warm, and the dim light shining through the green leaves is very relaxing, too. That sounds lovely. Ari was becoming a fan of his plan. Although, making it permanently fall for the colored foliage could be nice, too. That is true, but I really like the lush green. That's fair. She couldn't blame him for his preference. I also agree that a summer theme would be the most comfy. Yes. I like it. I'm a fan of the massive jungle Maya and I created around the cottage here, but a nice and simple forest will be a great place to relax. That's exactly what I was hoping to accomplish. The wolf agreed with her. Do you want to help me out? Eh? The jaguar hadn't expected that. Are you sure? Yes. He nodded. You went completely bonkers on the jungle, but I'm sure you can hold back enough to create something that is just nice. Shush. I had to do it. Fen sounded rather smug. So, do you want to accompany me? I'm not sure if I'll be of any help because of the big difference in our magic power, but I would love to try. Maya also has less than I do, and the two of you still created that massive jungle that is way more than I want for my forest. I think it should be fine. Ahaha, fair point. Sophia gave me a spot in her domain, together with a portal. He just continued. Together with some land and a couple of beech, oak, and maple saplings. I had already expanded it to around 100 meters in diameter, but that's about it. Alright, sounds like fun. Having decided on a plan for the day, the rather uncommon duo left the cottage and took the portal Sophia had prepared for the wolf to start his own biome. Oh ho, it has gotten a little denser around here. The two arrived at Finn's spot, and he took a quick glance at their surroundings. The trees grew quite a bit, too. It already looks lovely. Ari was also looking around. You were right about the lighting, too. She turned her head up towards the canopy and noticed how the light was making it shine in a bright green while a few rays made it through and lightly illuminated the bottom layer they were in at the moment. So cozy. It's kinda dim, but the glow and the few extra light rays make it just right. Especially compared to the jungle, where it's basically pitch black. Yeah, this is just right. He agreed with her evaluation. Your jungle is great, and I love the massive trees we made. I will definitely make many more in the future, but everything being oversized wouldn't fit the theme I'm going for here. The overgrowth would also block out all the light, and the feeling would be gone. You are so right with that. The jaguar nodded along. Even better, down here, you don't even realize that the light isn't coming from the sun but Sophia's white domain background thing. The green glow from the canopy makes it look just like sunlight. That's the best part. Fen felt the same. Our blondie really needs to do something about that. Her domain is the most fascinating thing I've witnessed, but it's quite hard on the eyes. Especially in the morning when you just woke up and get your eyes seared if you don't remember when opening the window or something like that. Maya removed too much of the jungle around the cottage. Ari agreed with his complaint. She did say that it will take a while, right? The concentration of ambient magic needs to be high enough or something like that. He tried to remember what Sophia had told them. I guess we just need more trees to block it for the time being, huh? Exactly what I was thinking. Do you want to continue the forest in a specific way? Ari looked around again. After all, it's your oasis, so I don't want to ruin anything. I prefer maple over oak over beech trees. Do what you want with that information. Focus on maple, got it. The jaguar smiled at him. Anything else? The trees can be a little bigger than usual, but nothing too extreme, please. He then gestured around him. This area is pretty much perfect. I see. She nodded. Can you really control it, though? For a single tree, yes, you use less of your magic to feed it, but how do you do that for a whole area you want to expand? In the jungle, Maya and I just dumped it into the area, and we know to what that led. I am not exactly sure about that, actually. It wasn't the explanation Ari had hoped for. How should I do it, then? When I made this part, I stretched out my released magic as thin as possible. That way, the saplings could only absorb a little magic, I guess? The rest was used to create more shrubbery and soil and all that. Honestly, I have no idea how this domain works. Don't look at me with that questioning expression. The jaguar shook her head. I'm like the least adept when it comes to magic in this group. I think you're selling yourself a bit short. He shook his head. I've seen you do some very promising things before. You just need some more training. Thanks. She got a little bashful. So. stretching out my released magic as thin as possible while hoping for the best. That's what I'm going to do. He nodded. Also, that second part, about hoping for the best, is the way to do any big magic. Why do I feel like Faye would disagree with that? Ari didn't believe him. Don't worry about it. He just turned his head away. Afterward, after having agreed on something loosely resembling a plan, the two got to work on shaping Finn's normal biome in Sophia's domain. Chapter 052, Complaining. The formation of a rather unexpected duo happened after Ari and Finn decided to take a day off to escape from the cold mountain the rest of the group was exploring. The two got along quite well, though, and decided to work together on the biome the wolf was planning to create in Sophia's domain. Are we there yet? While they were having a great time, Sophia's experience was a little more debatable. Good question. Maya and Anna looked just as miserable when they were lagging behind Aura, Steph, and Chloe while climbing up the snowy mountain. You know you can just look up to find the answer, right? Steph lifted her arm to point toward the summit, which was still nowhere to be seen. The trio didn't like that answer. Also, don't act like the three of you are having a hard time. She then pointed at the cats, or rather at the ground below them. While she and the other two were wading through snow that was at least 1 meter high, the fact they had a great time doing so aside, the ground below Sophia, who had Anna and Maya clinging to her arms on each side for maximum warmth, was completely free of snow. You're heating the air around you so much that the snow is melting instantly. Look behind you. You're creating an actual path up the mountain. Behind them was a roughly 1.5 meter wide path where the snow had melted all the way to the stone layer of the area they were walking through. We'd die without it. While the cats had agreed to continue the exploration, they also said they would never stop complaining, and they were certainly holding up to that promise. Stop sinking like that all the time. No. They disagreed with her. The dog girl gave up. Well, you're at least keeping up in here, so I'll cut you some slack. Speaking of, Maya got interested in that part. Ari and Fan, huh? That's an odd duo, isn't it? I wonder what they're up to together. That's an interesting question. Aura also was curious about it. Though, knowing my Fenny, I wouldn't be surprised if he naps the entire day away. I can see that happening. Sophia agreed with her. I wonder if Ari would join him. I mean, after she was so whiny about the cold yesterday, this would be the perfect comfy countermeasure. That's something I would do. Anna nodded a few times. It doesn't really sound like Ari, though. Fair. The short tiger agreed with that. If anything, she'd probably be out for revenge. The princess tilted her head. You know, for us cats betraying her. Ah. The blonde hadn't thought about that. She's going to burn down my domain. She then proceeded to panic. That sounds fun. Maya liked the thought of that. Even more things to look forward to when we get home. Shut up. Sophia didn't want to hear it. I can definitely see it happen. Anna went along with the cat girl. I hate all of you. The short tiger wasn't a fan of the conversation. Let's continue exploring the mountain. She wanted to distract herself. I'm not going to say no to that. Steph immediately got even more motivated. Absolutely. Chloe thought so, too. Let's climb to the summit and pour one out for Sophia's destroyed domain up there. Well, I know for sure that one biome's going up in flames. Do burnt pines smell as good as fresh ones? I'm sorry. I went too far. As she liked her pine forest a lot, the wolf immediately regretted her teasing. Please let my pines live. Fine. Thank you very much. Let's just try to reach the top and see if we can spot something interesting from there. Sophia had enough and started walking again while dragging the other two cats, who were clinging to her arms for warmth, with her. Yay! Steph, as usual, was raring to go. You've got to be kidding me. After around an hour of climbing, Sophia made a horrible discovery when she looked towards the sky. We already have enough. There's no need to start snowing now. Sophia, do something. Anna looked equally disturbed when she looked up. What she said. So did Maya. You three have to be the most melodramatic people I ever met. That's just simply not true. The trio, once more, completely synced their reply. Tell me one person that's worse than you. She stared at them. One single person. Ari. They answered at the same time again. She was much worse than us yesterday and even refused to come with us today. Steph paused for a moment. Okay, fine, you idiots win that round. Huh. Anyway. The dog rolled her eyes. It's just some snowflakes. Very light ones, too. It doesn't change the fact that there's way enough snow around here already. Exactly. Maya and Anna agreed with the blonde. Does the snow even affect you? Chloe tilted her head while looking at the cats. I see the snowflakes falling about you, but they disappear before they get close to you. Probably melting by the heat bubble around you, right? Oh, now that you mention it. Sophia only then realized what was going on above her. I guess it's not that bad, then. You're the best. I love you. The two cats only clung stronger to the blonde's arms. Anytime. Enjoy being sandwiched? Steph briefly glanced at Maya and Anna doing their best to stick as close as possible to Sophia to be in the middle of the warmth generation she was doing before staring at her sister. I can't complain. She smiled back at her. Well, I might be doing nothing but complaining today, but surely not about that. I have to admit that I'm a little envious. She couldn't hide it. Getting so much attention from two beauties. Hey. Chloe didn't like that. What? Steph just tilted her head. Look at her and tell me she isn't enviable. The fox stared at Sophia for a moment. Fine, being popular seems to come with quite a few nice benefits. Hating the cold does come with some benefits. The blonde looked and sounded rather smug. Okay, knowing that the snow can't harm us, let's continue. Even without the heat barrier, it couldn't possibly hurt you. The dog rolled her eyes. We beg to differ. The cats replied together again. Huh. They kept climbing up the mountain for about 2 more hours, and luckily, it stopped snowing even faster than it started, so it hadn't turned into a bother for anyone. Even if some of them loved it, it wasn't helping when you were trying to scale a mountain. Oh? Sophia looked up after the sky had cleared up and spotted something interesting now that they were able to see farther than before. Steph did the same. You're right. It was hard to see because it was kinda cloudy and foggy before, but we're close. I don't think it actually stopped being foggy, though. Chloe turned around while looking down the path they came from. It seems more like we passed the fog layer, and we're in the clear zone now. Looking back, they weren't able to see down all the way, thanks to a layer of fog wrapping around the middle part of the mountain. Makes sense. The blonde nodded a few times. Explains the bad weather, too. Though, I was hoping to get a good view of the area if we reached the top. That could be hard with all the fog below us. That would be very unfortunate. Anna agreed with her. I hope it will be gone by the time we reach it. You do know that there's a pretty easy solution for that, right? Aura just looked at the tigers. Really? The girls tilted their heads. Yeah, somehow sounding disappointed, the wolf then went silent for a few moments. Then, things turned a little turbulent. Strong winds formed everywhere around the group before the gusts traveled down the mountain. They were so strong that they shot right through the fog further down. The air movement then caused the fog to fully disappear. Doing that a few more times, Aura then caused all the mist in the visible area further down the mountain to disappear. Right. I forgot about magic. The tigers seemed quite impressed. Hee hee. The wolf liked their reaction. Is that really the solution, though? Chloe sounded a little dubious while she was looking at the result. Sure, the fog is gone, but you've swept up so much snow that you've caused an avalanche and a snowstorm at once. She pointed further down the mountain, where everything had turned into chaos. Ah. Aura hadn't thought that her actions could have possibly had consequences. It's fine. I've checked with my detection magic before, and no living being was down there, anyway. It doesn't help with the visibility, though. Steph lightly shook her head. This is the other side of the mountain we haven't explored, after all. Ah. The wolf reacted the same. It's fine. It will calm down eventually, and we'll be able to see. If there's anything left to see. Maya also had to add something. Everything worthwhile might be covered in snow from the avalanche. Ah. Aura was attacked from all sides. It's fine. This is just the first mountain of the range. If there's anything interesting in the first place, it would be deeper inside. How do we get deeper inside, though? Anna tilted her head. The valley we have to cross for that is now covered in probably 50 meters of snow that shot down the mountain. Ah. She wasn't getting a break anytime soon. It's fine. Once we're down, I'll use some more wind to get rid of it again. What if you only create more chaos doing that? Ah. The wolf wasn't able to have any different reaction. It's fine. Actually, yeah, it is fine. We love chaos, after all. Fair enough. The girls accepted her final flimsy excuse. Once that issue was taken care of, the group continued their ascent while also increasing their pace as the summit had finally come into view. Chapter 053, Whims of Great Significance. The group made steady progress on climbing up the mountain and had already gotten close enough to the summit that they could see it. Aura also caused a massive avalanche, a blizzard, and buried a plane under 50 meters of snow, but little mishaps happened from time to time, so they weren't too worried about it. Your big form is still a sight to behold. Ari and Fen were having a much more relaxed day. They had put some work into Fen's biome, but the two were currently taking a break in the already established and nice-looking middle part of it. It's very comfortable, too. Nice to hear, I guess? Fen was lying in the shade of a tree in his normal 2-meter-something form while the jaguar had sat down next to him while leaning her back against the wolf's side. The mossy ground also is very nice to rest on. That's true. Ari patted the ground next to her a few times before looking up. I still love the lighting. The green shine of the leaves by the light from above and the few rays making it through the foliage makes this place so relaxing. She let out a comfortable sigh while saying so as she leaned more against his body. Yes. He agreed. It makes you sleepy, too. Fen reacted to her sigh with one of his own. Ahaha. It's definitely one of my favorite places already. I'm glad it's turning out so well. It's really so nice. Ari felt the same. Thanks for letting me be a part of it. You are very welcome. He nodded once. You've been a great help, too. How long do you think it takes before we see the growth of the new areas where we used our magic earlier? She focused her gaze further away from where the two were currently relaxing. From what I've seen in the other biomes we made so far, I think it will be a few hours before we see first results and some growth. A few hours, huh? Ari's expression turned ever so slightly complicated while seemingly getting even more comfortable against Fen's side. Shall we take a nap until then? The wolf took a wild guess for her intentions. I can guarantee that napping in a place like this will be most amazing. She started blushing. Let me think about it. Sure. He sounded just a little smug. Don't expect me to not take this opportunity, though. I would never stand between you and your reason to be in this wonderful place. Thank you very much. Fen appreciated her empathy. Would you mind if I ask a few questions, though? Ari turned her head to the side to look at his face. It very much depends on the question if I answer, but I'll at least listen. I wouldn't ask for more. She smiled at him. You know, I've been wondering ever since you, Aura, and Feani showed your big forms to us. The one you're currently in, and I'm liking a lot, thanks to the comfiness. That, and Fen. Ari paused for a second. Are you Fenrir? Yes. He had no issues with simply admitting it. Huh. She went silent for a moment. Seriously? You'd think I know my full name, right? Fair point. She couldn't really say anything there. You do know just how much of an impact you had on this country, right? Barely any to none? He lightly tilted his head while looking at the jaguar. You're joking, aren't you? She didn't believe him. Are you maybe mistaking me for someone else? How many giant wolves going by the name of Fenrir are there? She just stared at him. Machem, there was little he could say there. From what I've heard about your age so far, I doubt it was an ancestor of yours either. Yes, I am older than this country. See? It has to be you. So, what did I do to be so significant? He honestly couldn't think of anything. Well, for one, it is said that you're the one responsible for forming this country. Huh? Finn only got more confused. I am fairly certain that the tiger family united the beast folk and founded the kingdom. I mean, we're running around with the current princess right now. Yeah, but, Ari scratched her cheek. I don't remember the exact story right now, but the history book said something along the lines of you having met the first king, King Aaron. Yeah, now that you mention it, I think I did. The wolf nodded. I remember being invited to the official forming of the capital a little while later. It was a lovely little village back then. What a thing to hear, calling the capital a nice little village. The jaguar needed a moment to process that. That might be it, though. It said that you caused them to build the capital, so it's only natural that you were invited to it. How was I the cause for that? He still couldn't follow her. How were the exact words again? There was a conversation between you and the future first king of the kingdom. Ari scratched her cheek. You make a great leader, and the tigers really are something else when caring for others. Have you ever thought about uniting the beast folk, Aaron? Sounds like fun, doesn't it? I'm sure you could pull off something as interesting as that. The wolf froze for a second. I think I remember now. He then awkwardly turned his head away from Ari. I was really bored back then. What? Back then, the beast folk kept things inside their own factions and rarely interacted with other families. That Aaron was different, though, as he had a whole party of many different families around him while they were adventuring the lands. He sounded a little nostalgic. I was intrigued by that concept and wanted to see if it could work out. That sounds a lot nicer than what you've said before. Well, I was intrigued because I was bored and wanted to watch something interesting happening. How about you keep that part to yourself from now on? Ari looked tired. Like, keep it a secret to anyone. Especially from Anna and the other tigers. Sure. I can't believe it, she let out a sigh. Our kingdom was formed because someone was bored and wanted some entertainment. To be fair, Fen wasn't done yet. Kinnear's treated as a god, and he has the same motives. You've met him and now know that he's an overseer, mostly for the fact of wanting to be entertained. Her eyes went lifeless for a second. My mind had suppressed that. If it helps, I was serious back then when I called the king a good leader and all that. I wouldn't have said that purely for the entertainment. That is a little relieving. Ari was glad that the founding of their country wasn't completely based on a joke. Our history records say that you constantly helped us out ever since then, though. Really? Yeah. She nodded. You won countless wars for us and saved us from even more impossible to defeat monsters. Admittedly, my memory is a little hazy because it's impossible to remember everything, but I will guarantee you that I never fought alongside the beast folk in a war. He shook his head a few times. That's not my style. That is what's recorded in our history, though. Ari shrugged. You were the reason many wars against the humans were won with little to no casualties. You showed up, and the human army was gone by the next day. Ah. His voice turned awkward again. I think I may know what happened there. Oh? The humans just really hate me. He let out another sigh. How does that explain anything? They constantly tried to hunt me down in the past, before I made them understand they have no hope of ever beating me. Fen rolled his eyes. Whenever they attacked me, I made sure that none of their so-called warriors were left behind in the area. I may have also erased some of their armies in the process. There's a possibility that at least some of those armies were about to attack the beast folk. Similarly, with those monsters, I'm just a musclehead that loves to fight. If there's a strong being, I'll fight it. Circumstances do not matter. I see. Ari went silent for a minute. Again, don't ever mention that while in the presence of any one of the beast folk. Sure. He wasn't the type to suddenly tell stories, anyway. I do quite like the beast folk, though. Their magic capabilities are rather underwhelming for the most part, but they're a nice and friendly folk, so it's great that I was able to help without even noticing. That's good. Are there any other, folk tales about me? There are some of you and Aurora together. Oh? His interest was piqued. Would you mind telling me? I don't mind, but it's mostly romance stories about how the two of you have been the perfect couple for centuries. Do you really want to hear that? He just stared at her for a moment. Never mind, forget I asked. Fen definitely did not want to hear it. Also, don't ever tell Aura about this. Sure. As Fen absolutely had no intention of continuing that topic, as he and Aura had only officially started dating last year, the duo decided to chat about other things for a bit while enjoying the nice and calming scenery around them. Chapter 054, Reaching the Summit. Ari and Fen were having a lovely time building the wolf's relaxing deciduous forest together and spent a long time just chatting about various things, including his heroic deeds for the kingdom, which turned out to be all just lucky coincidences and him being bored. We're almost there. While those two were having probably one of the most relaxing days in a while, this wasn't the case for Sophia and the others. The summit is within reach. Finally. Anna and Maya sounded rather tired. Let's go. Steph and Chloe were still highly motivated, though. Just in time for my snowstorm from earlier to calm down, too. Aura looked behind her and down the mountain where she had caused the avalanche when she tried to get rid of the fog with wind magic. Aren't you glad that worked out? Maya smiled at her. Very. The wolf nodded. Let's see if we can spot anything interesting from the top. Yay. 15 minutes later, after they finished the final bit of the ascent, the group finally reached the summit of the first mountain they climbed in the range. Wow. Finally getting a good view of the entire area from above, Sophia's eyes turned wide. This is amazing. Anna had the same reaction. This was totally worth the odyssey. Maya, too, was overwhelmed by the sight. I was not expecting that. So was Chloe. This is something else entirely. Steph also couldn't believe it. Aura stared at them for a while, before eventually focusing on the sight, as well. What's up with the sarcasm? It was a nice view, but it was ultimately just more mountains, snow, and bits of forests they could see in the far distance. There was nothing exceptionally interesting as far as the eye could reach. Because it's so anticlimactic. The blonde pointed into the distance. Yes, it's very pretty. In fact, this view would make for an amazing painting. It's one of the most beautiful normal sights I've seen in my life, but I was hoping for something like a grand reveal inside the mountain range. Like the remains of a ruined civilization. Or of a thriving civilization that's still alive. Steph changed the details of her story a little. That would have been even better. She agreed with her little sister. How high did you think the chance for that to happen was if you're that disappointed over it? With this group and taking into account just how many ridiculous things we came across already, pretty high, I'd say. The cat girl rolled her eyes. Aura stopped to think about it for a moment. I guess you have a point there. Well, an alive civilization was out of the question from the get-go, because I had picked up no signs of life with my magic, but some ruins indeed would have been nice. Maybe the abandoned colony from the being that made the tunnel through the mountain. She was quickly sold on the idea. To be fair, ignore that I also complained, but I think it might be too early to judge. Chloe pointed at another mountain a good bit away in front of them. That bad boy is a few hundred meters higher than the one we're on. Judging by the distance from looking down, it probably is a good bit over 3,000 meters tall. It's much wider, too. Even so, I think I might even see some mountain peaks behind it, too. We're still on the outskirts of the range, and there's no way of telling what lies behind it. That's a good point. Sophia nodded. We really just started exploring the area, huh? She paused for a moment. That means even more snow, huh? No. Anna and Maya were not happy to hear that. More exploring. Steph was, though. I think I'll join Ari from now on. Me, too. The princess and the cat girl decided to run away. Very enticing. The blonde liked the idea. Too bad you have to come with us, though. The dog smiled at her sister. We need your portals to return, after all. Without them, us traveling alone wouldn't really help anyone. Well, I could just give you a portal enchanted item. Sophia smiled back at her with equal amounts of sass in her expression. The ones that open when pouring magic into it. That's true. She had forgotten about that. Wait, so you're all going to ditch us, after all? Wait a moment. I just got an idea. Oh. Maya had a bad feeling after hearing this from her girlfriend. No, I think you'll like this. Sophia then pulled out a fist-sized stone out of her storage. This is one of my, portable portal stones. One of my PPs. No, everyone collectively decided that that would not be the abbreviation for them. I love you all. Sophia was very pleased about the reaction she got from them. Anyway, who wants to take a shortcut? She lightly threw up the stone above her hand a few times while asking. You aren't going to do what I think you're doing, right? Chloe had a feeling she knew her plan already. Exactly that. Smiling at her, Sophia then got in a pose loosely resembling that of a baseball pitcher. Then, she used all her might to throw the stone in the direction of the other mountain. It also looked like she used air magic at the same time because the rock looked like it turned supersonic, accompanied by a slight bang, while a gust of wind parted the clouds above them. That mountain is like 10 kilometers away, you know? Steph tried to follow the rock flying through the air with her eyes, but it was too small for it. Magic is great and all, and that throw was super impressive, but isn't that a bit far? Don't doubt the amazingness of magic. Sophia did not appreciate that. I could reach the capital from here if there are no obstacles between me and it. And if you'd know in which direction the capital is. Maya just had to. Minor details. She didn't appreciate that either. Anyway, let's give this a try. Immediately after, she opened a bigger portal for them to go through. Alright, Steph, you go first. Why me? The dog girl had no intention of following suit. Because you insulted my beloved magic. I did never. I just was a little dubious of it being able to do the job. That's even worse. As usual, the blonde was impossible to please. Also, you're fireproof. There's a high chance you're falling down a cliff at the side of a mountain proof, too. Those are two very different skills to have. Steph raised her voice. Are those skills in the first place? Anna was unsure if that was the right description here. Absolutely. The dog girl smiled at her before facing her sister. That's not a lot of confidence after your previous levels of sass. Ugh. She wasn't a fan of the sudden reversal. What about you, Chloe? I'm snowproof, but that's about it. She immediately got loud. Well, the portal leads to the summit of a snowy mountain, so. But what about the cliff you just mentioned? She wasn't going to bite. I'm just not sure if I 100% exactly hit it. You're not going to make Chloe go through it. Steph got very protective very quick. I'll throw you through it before that. You're all such babies. While saying so, Aura simply jumped into the portal and disappeared through it. We definitely know who's got the pants on in this group. Yes. Everyone agreed with Steph. Everything's clear. Half a minute later, the wolf stuck out her head through the portal and gestured to the girls to follow after her. I hate you. On the other side, the cats got incredibly angry at Aura. I love you. Steph and Chloe had much warmer feelings for her, though. Ehe. The wolf liked their reactions. While Sophia's portal had indeed reached the top of the other mountain, the summit was covered in roughly 3 meters of snow. Because of that, the moment they exited the portal, they fell into the snow and sunk down deep into it. It was safe, but I maybe forgot to mention a detail or two. Gore. The cats just growled at her. You're the best. The snow-loving two only fell more for her. Alright, I warned you. Time to change the climate of the whole region. Sophia was quite upset about the situation. Not so fast. Aura stopped her. You warned Steph, not me. Also, I didn't push you into the snow. You fell into it after I omitted some details. The snow's staying. Gore. The blonde only growled louder. Seriously, I love you. Steph managed to like her even more. Yeah, you're the best. Chloe had the same opinion. Sophia looked around for a few moments, but all she could see was snow. After falling into it, the group ended up forming a hole with snow all around them except a small opening above them where a bit of light shone through. There are few things and places I hated more than the current situation. We've been here for our entire life, but we agree. Anna and Ari hated it just as much. Easily top 10 for me. Steph disagreed. It's nice. As Chloe had already seen many things in this world, her reply was a little more neutral. Is it just me, or was traveling a lot less exhausting when it was just us and Fen? Sounding tired, the blonde glanced at her cat. Barry. She nodded. Though, admittedly, it was a lot less exciting, too. While Maya obviously wasn't a fan of the current situation, she could admit that it had gotten much more entertaining with the current group. Fair. Sophia had to agree. Alright, fine, I won't change the climate of the entire mountain range for the time being. The snow on the summit here has to go, though. To see something and get out of here. Not giving them a chance to complain, she immediately used her magic to warm up the entire area to quickly melt the snow in a 20-meter radius around them. So warm. Disgusting. Steph and Chloe weren't a fan. Afterward, once they were freed and able to leave the snow hole, the group finally was able to get a good look at their surroundings and what else would possibly revealed from on top of the second, much higher mountain they were on. Chapter 055, Comfy Forest Design. While the group was exploring the mountain range, Sophia decided to start cheating to make some better progress. She took one of her portable portals and used magic to throw it to another mountain that was further away. Thanks to that, the group could instantly travel there instead of descending from their current location, walking through a valley, and climbing another mountain over 3,000 meters tall. While the group was having an action-paced exploration, Ari and Fen were having a much more relaxed time. I told you a nap was a good idea. The wolf looked at the jaguar sleepily rubbing her eyes before stretching while she was still leaning against his side. Ari didn't answer at first, only letting out another yawn before stretching herself further. I guess. You would sound a lot more convincing if you didn't look so comfortable. He just continued to stare at her. She went silent again while her cheeks turned a little red. How long did we sleep? That's a good question. Fen looked around for a moment. I honestly have no idea. Normally, I would be able to tell from the position of the sun, but as the lighting doesn't change in this place, I have no answer. My usual naps last for around 3 hours, so if I had to take a guess, it would be around that much. I see. She nodded once, while still looking rather sleepy. Do you think the others are back already? I highly doubt it. He shook his head. I'm pretty sure Sophia would have come to get us already, then. After all, she would know where we are right now. Yeah, you're right. She agreed with his explanation. That's good. Shall we take another nap? Fen still seemed tired. I think I'll refrain from it for the time being. Even though she said so, she still sounded ever so slightly reluctant. I see. He, too, sounded disappointed about it. Instead, how about we go and see if our new area grew? Ari needed an excuse to get up. It's been a few hours since we last looked. Fine. Fen didn't sound overly happy about it, but he was still curious about it, too. They eventually and very reluctantly got up, stretched themselves some more, and lazily walked towards the area the two used their magic to grow Fen's forest bigger a couple of hours ago. Oh. Once they arrived in the new area, Ari finally fully woke up, and her eyes grew wide. It worked. She noticed that there were many new trees around them that weren't there at the beginning of the day. It sure has. The wolf was also looking around. Thanks for focusing on the maple trees, by the way. He noticed how Ari had primarily grown them in the new area after he mentioned liking them the most. You are welcome. She smiled at him in return. How do you like the rest of it? It turned out great. Fen sounded happy. The trees are nice and densely grown without being too big. Enough light for a good feeling inside still makes it through the canopy, too. Though, it's kinda interesting that the ground around here is so much mossier. I wonder how that happened. He looked at the ground in front of him, which was completely covered in a thick layer of moss. That's indeed weird. Ari looked at her feet and noticed how they were lightly sinking into the soft green carpet. Maybe a patch of moss in the old area sponged up more magic than it should have? Your guess is as good as mine. He had no better explanation, either. It would be great if it's that easy, though. You like the moss? She was wondering why he thought it was great. Absolutely. He nodded. It's nice and comfortable. Sleeping on it is the best when it comes to staying in a forest. Everything comes back to naps with you, huh? Ari lightly rolled her eyes. They are very important for a healthy lifestyle. Are they now? The jaguar didn't believe him. How are you feeling right now? Great, why? She tilted her head. Nice and rested? Feeling healthy and full of energy? Pretty much? Right after the nap we had just moments ago? His voice was overflowing with sass. I know why you and Sophia get along so well. Because we know how to live life to the fullest? She paused for a moment. Yeah, sure, let's go with that. Do you not agree that it sounds very comfortable? Well, Ari looked down at her feet again and noticed the spring in her step as she put some force on the moss. I guess you might have a point. I mean, the other spot already was a little mossy, and it was nice to sit on, so. See? Was it that hard to be honest? I don't want to hear that from you. She glared at the wolf. Sophia and Aura are constantly teasing you about not being honest, too. Was there really a need to go for such a low blow? He turned away his head. You started it. Ari wasn't going to apologize. How about we drop the topic? We had such a relaxing thing going on, after all. I like that idea. She nodded a few times. Okay, should we expand the forest a little more, or do you have different plans for it? A little bit bigger would be nice, but I also want to add some other things, so it shouldn't become too massive. It should be a small oasis, after all. Oh? The jaguar got interested in that. What other things are you planning? I'd like to have a river going through the forest here. Flowing water has a really pleasant sound, which will help make it even more comfortable and relaxing around here. Fen was going all out to make his napping place as perfect as possible. A small lake it leads to would be nice, too. We should have done something together way sooner. Ari smiled at him. That sounds lovely. Glad to hear. Let's go. She got very motivated over it. Having come up with a plan, the two got to work. Ari used some more of her raw magic to dispense it in her surroundings in order to let the flora grow better. While she was doing that, Fen was a little more destructive. With the help of earth-based magic, he dug a 5-meter wide and 2-meter deep trench through the entirety of his forest from one end to the other. Trying to make it seem somewhat natural, he added many twists and turns so that the riverbed wouldn't look too weird. It looks like the lake has to wait a little longer. Sounding a little troubled, Fen looked at the end of the riverbed at the outskirts of his forest. What's up, big guy? Ari joined him a few moments later and tried to find out what he was doing. Good job on the river, by the way, it's looking good already. I've run into a bit of an issue. He then gestured in front of him. His riverbed was around 2 meters deep and led out of the forest where he planned to create a lake. Unfortunately, as the forest ran out, the layer of dirt below it ran out, too. It just slowly transformed into the all-white floor of Sophia's domain at some point. I can't dig through that. Ah. The jaguar scratched her cheek. Do we need to grow the forest in that direction, too? So that we can dig down? It needs to get something, that is true, but while digging the riverbed, I noticed that this weird white floor is also under the whole forest. It was around 3 meters deep, more than enough for a river, but a lake needs to be a lot deeper. That's true. Ari nodded. How does all that work in the first place? How does the white stuff turn into dirt? Beats me. He had no explanation. Magic, I guess. The overseer kind on top, huh? That appears to be the case. Fen thought so, too. I guess I have to ask her to make a lake-sized hole in the ground for me. Ari tilted her head. If I remember right, oak trees have pretty deep and expansive roots, right? It at least seemed like that when I dug some out while making the riverbed. The wolf nodded. Why? It also feels like the white floor gets replaced by soil, depending on how much the plants need it, right? That could be an explanation, yes. He then looked at her. Do you have an idea? Maybe? Ari wasn't entirely sure yet. If we take a single oak sapling and put it in the middle of where you want the lake to be and grow it, the white floor will be replaced with soil. The bigger the tree, the more of the white will be replaced. So, we should make a gigantic oak tree in the hope the roots will also become massive and replace much of the white under it. Yes. She nodded. Afterward, we get rid of the tree, and just a massive hole should remain. Interesting. It's either that or asking Sophia. I'm quite partial to trying it out ourselves first before that. Hee hee. Ari let out a small chuckle. We don't want to give Sophia that satisfaction, do we? Exactly. He thought the same. Once they decided on a course of action, the two got a spare oak sapling and put it in a spot where Fen wanted the lake to be. Obviously, the duo made sure to have enough distance from the forest so that the massive growth wouldn't accidentally spread to it. After having bathed the sapling in a generous but not too over-the-top amount of magic from both, they returned to the forest and began filling the riverbed with water so that it would turn into an actual river rather than just a trench. Chapter 056, Pink. Fen and Ari were still diligently working on their forest oasis, and had just begun adding a river and a lake to make it even more comfortable and relaxing in the area. As especially the lake turned out to be more work than expected, they needed to get a little creative and test out some things before continuing, though. Finally, free. While those two were having a great time, Sophia had just won a fight between life and death. Getting rid of the snow they fell into, that is. I just want a hot bath and go to bed. The fight had left some scars on Maya, too. I'm looking forward to the hot springs tonight. Anna's feelings on the matter also were the same. Steph just let out a sigh. Though, I agree with the hot springs part. She loved that event, after all. Was it at least worth it? Anna then started looking around. Wow. Would you look at that, more mountains and snow. She did not find anything of interest. More fun stuff, perfect. Steph's opinion on it differed greatly. Well, that was to be expected. Maya scratched her cheek. Wait, I think I just spotted something pink and weird looking. She then pointed a little bit to her right. Hey, that's rude. Chloe got upset over the fact that the cat girl was roughly pointing in her direction. Also, I have a name. Not you, pink idiot. She shook her head. Turn around and look to the right of the next mountain we're facing. There's something pink peeking out behind its base. Hey. The fox girl did not like the idiot part but still turned around as instructed. Let's see. She then looked in the direction Maya was actually pointing while squinting her eyes and putting a hand over her forehead to block out some of the sun to see better. Oh. You're right. What is it, though? She squinted her eyes even more, to focus on the objects in the distance. Are those trees? Trees? Sophia's tail perked up as she heard that. Pink trees? She seemed very interested in them. The blonde then also tried her best to focus on the area Maya was still pointing at. They're actually pink. Wait, are those cherry blossoms? She got quite excited. Cherry blossoms? Anna tilted her head. Isn't it a bit late for them to bloom? Well, it's a lot colder around here, so it would make sense if they bloom later. Chloe had an easy explanation for it. Right, that's true. Alright, let's go. Sophia suddenly became the most motivated person in the group. Eh? Maya didn't like her enthusiasm. It's getting late, though. We've been out in this hell all day, and I'm pretty sure the sun's about to set, too. I 100% support the complaints of our cat girl. The princess instantly sided with her. I'm not going home before I reach those trees. The blonde sounded more determined than ever. I need those cherry blossoms in my domain. Why? Maya didn't want to stay. Because I love them. Perfectly valid reason. Steph supported her sister's sudden passion. I, too, love everything that is pink. She smiled at Chloe during the last part. Does it have to be today, though? Maya wasn't done being against it just yet. Exactly. The tall cold-hating cat had the same concerns. As mentioned before, you don't have to stay. Sophia then opened one of her portals in front of her. Though, I would be very grateful if someone would prepare dinner for us in around 2 hours. Deal. Maya immediately jumped through the portal. I'll help. Anna followed right after her. Ahaha. The short tiger could only laugh over this. Who could have possibly imagined me being the last cat standing, huh? Yeah, I would have lost a lot of gold if I had placed any bets on that. Aura agreed with her. Yes. Steph nodded. Especially because I would have put my odds on Ari for being the least affected between you 4 idiots. Things really worked out weirdly there. Chloe, too, was confused about the outcome. Anyway, the blonde decided to ignore them. Let's head to the top of the mountain next to the cherry blossoms first to get an overview of what's going on there. She then grabbed another of her portable portals and threw it towards the mountain just as she did before. Yay! Steph and Chloe were big fans of the excited tiger. Wow! Sophia's eyes grew wide the moment they arrived on the other mountain. Luckily, that summit was only covered in a very thin layer of snow that wasn't much of a bother. Thanks to that, they could immediately concentrate on what lay ahead and down the mountain. It wasn't visible before, but it wasn't just a few cherry blossom trees. Hidden behind the mountain that had blocked the view before, there was an entire forest of cherry blossoms in full bloom. It was so massive that the whole area between the mountains, which were a couple of kilometers apart, was covered in pink. It looked so nice. Her little sister agreed with the view. As expected, once something is pink, it's perfect. She smiled at Chloe again. That wasn't your best one. The fox slowly shook her head. Thank you, though. She still liked it regardless. Still, yes, this looks absolutely lovely. It would make a great biome in the domain, wouldn't it? Yes. The tiger agreed. Also, before anyone gets the idea, it will be my project. I adore cherry blossoms, and I want another project that's just mine. Another? Steph got curious about her wording. You helped all of us with various things, but was there something else you did? Maybe. She smiled at her. Now I'm getting curious. Sorry, it's still a secret. As Sophia was talking about magic being conscious and how she's having a ton of fun with them, she had no intention of telling them about it. It's also still a work in progress, so maybe in a few years once it's ready. Years? Aura raised her voice. Just what are you up to? Something incredibly fun. Her mood was excellent. And you'll hate me for having kept it a secret once you find out. I already hate you right now. Steph started pouting as she hated being left out of something. I want to be in on the fun. Sorry, no can do. The blonde shook her head. Everyone should have a thing or two just for them, and that's mine. Alright, fine. The dog girl gave up. Well, I'm looking forward to whenever it's done. Aura didn't sound upset in the first place. A few years sound excessive at first, but they're over in a flash, after all. Being as long-lived as she was, something like that long stopped mattering for her. And on that note, the cherry blossom forest will be another me project. Sophia ignored the wolf. I want it to be exactly how I want it to be without any input from others. Eh? Steph didn't like that. Not even a single suggestion? We already have one, but we need a hot spring surrounded by ever-blooming cherry blossoms. Who do you take me for? She stared at her while slowly shaking her head. It would be a crime not to have them there. In fact, there will be multiple different ones. Okay, you have my blessing for the project. The dog girl was happy. Wait, does that just mean that no one can help you with the forest or that you're the only one allowed to use cherry blossoms? I mean, it's your domain, so there's little I can say, but I'd love to have them in more areas. Chloe had mixed feelings about the plan. They are very pretty, after all. No, that would be totally alright. Sophia smiled at her. It would be nice to have a little group of them sprinkled everywhere, but I want to keep the massive forest unique for the time being. Thank you. It was enough for the fox girl. It's just as Steph said, everything's better when it's pink. Exactly. The dog girl nodded a few times. You're just saying that because Maya isn't here right now. Chloe didn't buy it. Let's go. Not facing her, Sophia raised her arm and began walking down the mountain towards the cherry blossom forest. Dork. The fox girl could only shake her head. Obviously, Sophia made exactly 3 steps before she remembered that they were traveling using her portable portals. She quickly pulled out another one and threw it towards the forest. Oh. Arriving inside the sea of cherry blossoms, the blonde's mood increased yet again. It looks even better up close. She twirled around on the spot while several pink petals fell down on and around her. They seemed to be in bloom for a few days already because even the lightest breeze caused more petals to fly around in the air, and the ground, too, was covered in pink. We came at the perfect time, huh? Steph was also looking around with a big smile. It couldn't have been more impressive and beautiful. Yeah. She nodded. I almost feel bad that I'm going to rip a 200 by 200 meter wide hole into it to put into my domain. This much? Aura tilted her head. Didn't we usually take a few trees or saplings together with a bit of soil? I love this area too much, and I want a full copy as my starting point. With just a few saplings, the output is more random. I mean, the areas you all made with the samples we collected look nothing like the original places, right? That's true. I mean, I'm going to make some changes, but the base is perfect. I want to keep the feel. At least in some parts. I'm looking forward to whatever the outcome is. Chloe was certain she'd turn it into something nice and beautiful. Afterward, Sophia went ahead and borrowed a sizable portion of the cherry blossom forest for her domain. Though, feeling bad about the hole she created, she released a little of her internal magic in the area, hoping the surrounding trees would absorb it and grow enough to close the gap she made. Then, once the 4 were ready, the group returned to the cottage using the blonde's portal that she opened for them. Chapter 057, Lakes and Rivers. Sophia and the others found a massive cherry blossom forest hidden inside the mountain range, and the blonde got very excited over it. Loving the trees with the pink petals a whole lot, she decided to bring a part of it over to the domain to use it as a start for her very own biome project there. My dearest fan, I think I may have found a slight flaw in your river plans. The duo was still working on the wolf's forest when the jaguar suddenly looked at him while helping him fill the riverbed he made with water. Oh? He faced her. What would that be? You wanted the river because you like the sound of flowing water, right? Yes. Fen nodded. I think it's a very relaxing sound. I agree, but how's the river supposed to flow? She tilted her head while pointing at the water they created with magic so far. The area is completely flat, and the water's just, well, sitting there. One end of the river needs to be higher than the other, doesn't it? Ah. He froze. I forgot about that part. Yep, it's obvious why you and Sophia get along. She had to chuckle at his all-too-familiar reaction that reminded her of the blonde. The wolf looked around in the area before facing her again. Any idea how to fix that? Is it even fixable? Ari scratched her cheek. We would need to redo the entire area to add a slope. Even then, we'd need a water source that's constantly putting out water, or else the lake would just run dry. How would we do that? Also, what would we do with all the water coming out at the end of the river? There's the planned lake, but that will also be full eventually. The more she thought about it, the more issues came to light. I like the way how you think so logically. Fen liked their conversation. A water source wouldn't be so hard, I guess. I mean, there hasn't to be a constant flow of water. After all, it would be enough to have it when someone's here, and they could just use their magic to create a source. That's fair, but that means we couldn't put any fish in the water because they'd die once the source is gone. I hadn't thought about that. Fish would be nice. Delicious, too. The wolf had some questionable priorities. Yes, that wouldn't work. Also, I really don't want to redo everything here to create a slope. That's true. The jaguar agreed. It also wouldn't solve the problem of the excess water, or you at least would have to constantly make sure nothing is overflowing. Doesn't sound relaxing at all. He disliked the idea more and more. Exactly. Ari nodded. Oh. Oh? Fen tilted his head after the jaguar suddenly loudly clapped her hands. Did you come up with something? Maybe. I like the confidence. He rolled his eyes. Let me hear it. Instead of an artificial water source, we could make an artificial current. That way, even if we add fish, they'd still be able to survive without us around. That sounds a lot more practical. He agreed with her. How would we do that, though? That's an excellent question. Ari awkwardly scratched her cheek. Oh. You know, you keep saying that it's obvious why Sophia and I get along, but you're not that different in many aspects. He felt reminded of many of the sudden ideas the blonde got out of nowhere while having the same reaction as the jaguar. Why yeah, we all kinda rub off on each other. So, what's the idea you have? He wanted to avoid going into detail there. We could make the river loop. Or maybe have both, end and start, connected to the lake. That way, once we make one part move, the entire river water should start flowing in response. That might actually work. Fen liked the idea. We need to add a bit more pathing to the riverbed to make it loop into the lake, but that won't take too long. Great! Let's get started, then. Afterward, the duo immediately began rerouting the riverbed so that it started and ended where they planned to make the lake. Speaking of the lake, huh? The two finished in no time at all and ended up in the lake area around half an hour later. There, Ari looked at their previous project while scratching her cheek. They made a massive oak tree, which seemed to be about 600 to 700 meters tall. It's certainly most fascinating how those plants react to raw magic. The wolf seemed impressed by the result. It's good that we didn't use more of it, too. A little more, and the rest of the forest definitely would have been affected, as well. That's true. The jaguar also noticed how close the new tree and the soil around it had come to the forest, even though they had placed the sapling roughly 500 meters away from it. So, what do we do now? I'd say it's time for Maya's favorite afternoon activity. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in you that way. Ari turned him down while lightly waving her hand. After all, Maya's favorite activity at any time is guaranteed to be something horny. Fen stared at her in absolute silence for what felt like a whole minute. No. He then shook his head a few times. Thinking about it now, you might be right, but that's not what I meant. She also loves to play with fire and burn things down. Oh. Seriously, and here I praised you for being logical earlier. Come on. The jaguar started pouting. When you think about Maya and the things she loves, setting fire to stuff isn't the first that comes to mind. He went silent once more. Again, fair point, but let's just get past that topic, okay? Sure. Ari nodded. Alright, burning down such a massive tree sounds fun. Absolutely no one in this group dislikes a good fire, huh? He liked her reaction. Do you want to do the honors? The wolf then gestured at the tree. Really? You're the one who came up with the idea of creating it to convert the white ground into soil, so it's only fair you get the reward of burning it down. If you say so. She started smiling. Okay, let's give this a try. Immediately after, she threw a couple of fireballs into the tree's massive crown, setting it ablaze instantly. Seeing a great fire is always such a lovely sight. Fen looked up as he was watching the tree burn down. Good job so far. Going from top to bottom first was a good call, too. That way, there's less danger of the crown crashing into the forest when the trunk burns and breaks. That was what I was thinking, too. Ari was happy he understood her reasoning. Though, this approach also has some downsides. She noticed how a ton of debris in the form of burning leaves, sticks, embers, and ash had started raining down as the fire kept consuming more and more of the tree. Yeah, a fire like that can get a little dirty on that front. He nodded. It's part of the experience, though. The massive ball of fire that once was the crown of the tree, combined with the embers raining down, is a sight to behold. We should do that more often. Ahaha. There was nothing else she could say here. Anyway, let's finish it. She then shot a few extra fireballs towards the tree's trunk to speed up the process a little. Roughly half an hour later, only a few burnt remains of the once massive tree were left. That was fun. Fen's mood was excellent. Do you mind if I dig out the roots and create the shape for the lake? Go wild. Ari smiled at him. I'm not that into digging, so I have no plans of stealing your fun. Great. He immediately started digging. Fen was so into it that he didn't even use magic in the beginning and disappeared underground by just using his paws. Ari watched him for a while, but she eventually decided to clean up the area because her tree inferno had caused quite a bit of rubbish to pile up everywhere. Good job. Around an hour later, the two got together again. Also, how did you do all that in an hour? With big eyes and a slightly agape mouth, she looked at the massive hole with a diameter of seemingly reaching a kilometer while being roughly 150 meters deep in the center before getting shallower the further out it got. I got very motivated. The wolf sounded quite smug while looking at her. I can see that. The idea with the tree and the roots was amazing. It turned out to be the perfect size of ground that got converted into soil for the lake. If anything, I might argue that you overdid it ever so slightly. That's going to be one massive lake. Like I said, I got very motivated while digging. I mean, it's still okay, but it will take a long while to fill that hole with water. Ah, that's true. Judging by his voice, he hadn't thought about that when he was motivated. Also, Ari then looked up. I'm not the biggest fan of having the domain's background lighting up the entire area in that bright white. To be perfectly honest, I think I had too much fun building all this that I forgot to think about things like that. He paused for a moment. You are absolutely right, though. Right now, ignoring the part where there's no water yet, this place is not very nice. Way too bright and not relaxing at all. I don't think that's fixable for the time being, though. The domain needs to grow a sky first or whatever for it to work. The jaguar tilted her head. I think I might have a solution for that. A temporary one, at least. I'm all ears. How about we make a small island in the middle of the planned lake? There, We'll place a massive tree with a wide canopy that covers the entire lake. That way, we can block out the ugly white. We just need to make sure that some light still gets through. Oh. He seemed to like the idea. That could work. There are some variants of oaks that grew quite wide, too, right? Well, the one I burned down earlier would have worked already because it spanned over the whole area. The trunk was too wide, and the roots were way too big, though. Yes, there probably would be little space left for the lake, huh? Do you know weeping willows? Willows? The wolf tilted his head. Wait, those are the trees where the leaves hang down like garlands, right? Yes, those. She nodded. If cultivated right, they can grow really wide and take little trunk space. They're really pretty, too. Oh, I always found those very fascinating. We could try that. Though, we don't have any of those right now. That's true. The jaguar hung her head. A weeping cherry would be even better. They naturally grow quite wide, and pink cherry blossoms are amazingly beautiful. Though, just where would we get a cherry blossom tree from? Especially a weeping one. I'm normally not into pink, but cherries are an exception. He apparently liked them, too. But, yes, I haven't seen them in quite a while. I guess it will be easier to get a regular weeping willow. Yeah. I think it's for the best to put the lake area for a little while longer. He looked at the huge hole. At least until we have a final plan. Sounds like a good idea. Ari agreed. Alright, how about we head back for the time being? How about another little break before the energetic rest of our group returns? I like that plan better. The jaguar reacted with a big nod. Doing just that, the duo returned to the middle of the original forest and got comfortable there for a little bit to brace themselves for the return of the others. Chapter 058, Soft and Comfortable. Fen and Ari made even more progress on their forest project and just finished the outline for the planned lake in the area. Unfortunately, thanks to the openness of a lake area, the entire place was bathed in the all-white nothingness of Sophia's domain. They came up with the idea of growing a tree with a massive canopy over it, and both liked the idea of a weeping willow or cherry, but as they had neither at hand right now, the duo decided to take a break for the time being. Finally back home. Sophia, Aura, Steph, and Chloe arrived back in the domain right in front of the cottage, and the blonde was quite happy to be out of the winter hell. You did well. The fox smiled at her. At least better than the other cats. Steph didn't praise her as much, which is quite the feat if we take into account who we're talking about. Aura defended the blonde a little. And I'll make sure they'll never forget about that. The tiger sounded incredibly smug. Anyway, I'm hungry. Steph decided that it was time to change the topic. I can smell cooking, so let's go. That's the nose of a dog for you, huh? Sophia seemed impressed. An excellent idea. Alright, I'll go collect Fenny and Ari, and we can eat. MHM? Aura looked confused. They aren't in the cottage? Nope. She shook her head. It seems like they're in the area where I gave Fenny a spot for his biome project. They probably got bored while we were out. Ah, I see. Okay, let's meet inside once I got them. Sure. Sophia went to the area where she noticed Fen and Ari to be, thanks to instinctively knowing where everyone was at all times. Well, that's certainly a sort of nostalgic sight. She appeared right in front of the duo without having made a single sound. Thanks to that, she got a good view of what was happening right now. Fen and Ari had decided to take a break before returning, but that actually meant that they took another nap in the relaxing forest they built. Just as before, the jaguar had leaned against the wolf's side, and both were fast asleep when the blonde arrived. That reminds me of the early days with Fenny. She watched them for a little longer as she was reminded of the time when she just arrived in the world and met the wolf. It certainly is amazing how easy Ari goes with the flow, too. Also, the tiger let out a small chuckle before looking around some more. This forest is amazing. So cozy and comfy looking. I can see why they're napping. In fact, I'm even more envious now. I guess that's what they were up to today, huh? The two had yet to wake up and notice her presence. Alright, wakey wakey, dot. Having had enough of watching them, the blonde hit them with a light gust of wind. Huh? Fen immediately woke up. Ari needed a little longer and had to stretch herself and yawn first, before noticing the tiger. Her cheeks turned red once she noticed Sophia had seen her in this situation. Someone got comfy, huh? She smiled at the jaguar after seeing her cute reaction. Don't worry, I can't blame you for it, dot. The blonde had no intention to tease her. It's my spot, though. She didn't appreciate the competition. I slept like that almost every night before we arrived in the capital last year. I understand why. Ari lightly nodded. He's very soft and comfortable. I am not entirely sure how I should feel about such praise. Fen wasn't exactly happy about it. You should definitely be happy that two girls want to cling to you and sleep with you, too. Sophia gave him a thumbs up. That sounds horrible out of context. The jaguar didn't like her wording. That. The wolf nodded a few times while looking at her. Also, we are mutually not interested in each other. What part should make me happy here? Bragging rights to others when you leave out some details, dot. The blonde sounded extra cheeky. It's technically not a lie when you say that you have a whole group of beautiful girls around you who love to cling to you. You are the absolute worst. He had nothing else to say to her. Yeah. Ari nodded in agreement. Come on, it's fun, dot. Now the duo shook their heads. Are you two besties now? Sophia was surprised by their unionization. Yes. Wow, I didn't see that one coming. She seemed happy about it, though. Well, I can see why you two get along, but that much is nice. It turned out that we have a lot in common and got along quite well while working on my forest. Fen looked around while sounding rather proud. I see. Speaking of, the forest looks great. Good job, you two. She smiled at them. I love it. So comfy. None of my stupid all-white default domain, too. Thank you. They enjoyed her praise. You really need to do something against that bright white. The wolf shook his head. It's really bad. I'm trying, you know? The blonde raised her voice. That's the main purpose of the Sophia tax. I need to raise the concentration of raw ambient magic for that to work. I hope it happens soon. Me, too. Sophia was looking forward to it the most, after all. Anyway, how about a tour? I love this place already, and I want to see more. Sure. The duo showed her all the places they created during the day, like the mossy area and the partially watered riverbed, before eventually arriving at the place where they dug out the hole for the planned lake. Very impressive for just a day of work. You two really had a good time, huh? Yes. The two nodded while looking at the tiger. Okay, again, I love the forest, but I'm not sure about the lake area. She scratched her cheek while taking everything in. I get the idea, but the open roof, especially at the moment, with my white domain, completely ruins the mood. We know. They just sighed. Got a little overmotivated before realizing, huh? She took a guess on what happened. We don't want to answer that. Have you thought about covering it with something? Sophia looked up. Maybe a massive tree with a wide crown to block out the white. That's the plan we had. Ari nodded. The current trees all have two big roots, though. We want to make a small island in the middle to put a tree with a wide crown there. While oaks can have wide crowns, they have wide roots, too. I mean, this hole came to be after we made a massive oak and removed it and the roots underground. Wow, looks like you've got it figured out already, huh? The tiger seemed impressed again. Yeah. The jaguar kept nodding. Fen and I decided to find a weeping willow and put it there. We both seem to like it, and they have massive crowns. That's the plan. The wolf agreed with her. A weeping willow, huh? She tilted her head. Does a weeping cherry work? I'm not sure if pink would work for Fenny, but I'd prefer that over a willow. Cherry trees are one of the exceptions when it comes to pink. He didn't mind. I like them. A weeping cherry would be even harder to come by, though. Ari raised her voice a little. Do you want one? Sophia just smiled at her. You have one? A few hundred, yes. She tried her hardest not to look smug. Why do you have so many of them? The jaguar got even louder. How, too? While someone decided to stay home, the rest of us braved the cold and found a massive cherry blossom field in the middle of the mountain range. Thousands of cherries. It was one of the most beautiful sceneries I've ever seen. Ah. Ari's expression turned awkward. She seemed a little envious, too. It was amazing. Sophia had to rub it in. Anyway, I'm going to create the most amazing cherry blossom biome in my domain, but I can part with a single weeping cherry if you want to. Most of the trees we found were regular cherry blossoms, but there were a good few weeping ones in between, too. Oh. It would be amazing if we could get one. Yes. Fen agreed with Ari's enthusiasm. Sure thing. She smiled at the energetic duo again. Not today, though. I first need to sort through the trees I borrowed. Maybe I'll also just get you a fresh one instead. Also, I'm hungry. Maya's been preparing dinner, so let's go and eat. Afterward, I need a hot bath to recover from today's ordeal. Sounds like a plan to me. Ari liked what she was hearing. Fan and I also decided to head back before, well. You two took a nice nap? Why yeah, that. She lightly nodded. We've done enough today, so tomorrow is more than fine. Once they decided on what to do the following day, the trio took a portal back to the cottage. Luckily, they arrived just in time when Maya, with the help of the princess, finished preparing dinner for the entire group. Afterward, the girls, excluding the wolves, went to their hot springs for their usual evening bath together. While bathing, Sophia had a grand time teasing the other cats about her being the most resilient one of the day. Ari had been on the receiving end of especially much flack, thanks to her having been bailed out entirely. Chapter 059, Reality Check. Sophia and the others finished their mountain range adventure after having found a cherry blossom forest and headed back to the cottage. There, the blonde found out that Fan and Ari had been doing their own thing the entire day and created a very nice-looking, comfortable, and relaxing forest together. Alright, let's go. Sophia started the next day on a very motivated note. Because she wanted to start working on her very own cherry blossom biome, as well as the cats needing a break from the snowy mountains, they decided to stay in the domain. Steph, Chloe, and Aura thought about adventuring on their own but ultimately decided against it. Instead, they asked the blonde to open one of her portals in a remote area of her domain and another one leading to the top of one of the snowy mountains because they wanted to play around. It's still so very beautiful. The blonde went to the area in her domain where she put the portion of the cherry blossom forest she borrowed from the mountain range and looked at it with sparkling eyes because she loved it so much. I can't wait to mess around with it. My dearest and most beloved magic, do you want to play with me? She looked at nothing in particular when she said those words with her sweetest voice possible. There are so many fun things I want to try. 2 seconds later, the tiger was swarmed by an uncountable amount of pink and purple particles that began to swirl and dance around her. I'm happy to see you, too. Her already excellent mood brightened even more when she noticed just how excited the magic particles were after having been called out by her. Hearing that, they became even more active and increased their pace around the tiger. Ehe. Sophia liked their reaction. Take a look at that. She then pointed at the portion of the cherry blossom forest in front of her that she had rescued from the mountain range. Isn't it the cutest? Going in the direction she was pointing at, around 2/3 of the particles disappeared into the forest and roamed around in it. Interestingly enough, the pink and purple bits flying in between the trees made it look like cherry petals were dancing through the forest from a distance. Magical cherry forest. Even better. The blonde's smile got bigger. Do you like it, too? She looked at the mass of particles in front of her that just returned and watched them moving up and down a few times. Great! Do you all want to help me make this forest look even more amazing and turn it into a massive biome? Immediately after she said those words, the particles returned to energetically swirling around the tiger. Don't worry, it's not for free. Saying so, she lifted her hand, and many pink and purple particles rose out of it before immediately joining the others still swirling around her. You can have as much of my authority as you need. It should be fair, after all. I just want to involve all of you directly instead of just using my authority to make magic do things for me. In response to that, the raw magic got more active once again and returned to moving up and down. I'm glad you like the plan. Sophia took it as a positive reaction. I have some wishes, but other than that, we can play a lot. Do you want to hear my ideas? The particles immediately moved even more up and down. Not that you can't read my thoughts, anyway, huh? That remark earned her several gusts of wind that almost swept her off her feet. What, it's true, isn't it? She didn't appreciate their reaction, but she only was met with even more wind afterward. You know, it's quite unfair that you get to play with me, but immediately get upset when I tease you a little. The blonde started pouting. Unfortunately, Magic's answer to that only was even more wind hitting the tiger's face. Gore. Another gust of wind, and we're not going to play anymore. The instant she said those words, every single particle froze in midair. There wasn't the slightest breath of wind anymore, either. Thank you very much. Okay, with that out of the way, let's start. After all, Sophia hadn't been angry at all. I have some things I want to see in the forest, but there's lots to play with. Are you all okay with that? She paused for a moment to watch the reaction of the particles. Unsurprisingly, every single one of them immediately returned to moving up and down in an extremely energetic manner. Perfect. She gave them a nod of approval. First, do you see that there are many regular cherry blossoms, but not quite as many of the weeping cherry trees? I mean those with the hanging garland-like leaves. Listening to her, a small group of the particles moved away from the tiger and circled around one of the wishing cherries that were nearby. Exactly. I love them. If possible, I'd like more of them. Like 2/3 weeping, and 1/3 the regular ones. Afterward, 2 more groups of particles left Sophia. One began circling around regular cherry blossoms, while the other chose a second weeping one. Exactly. Second, I want this place to be mainly beautiful. The look should you, and not having a bunch of massive trees. I'd like to have more, instead of bigger trees. You should be able to be in there for weeks and still not see anything other than cherry trees. They can be a little bigger, but no more than 50% extra over the original. Can we do that? Hearing her suggestion, every particle gathered around the tiger and collectively nodded by moving up once more. Yay! Alrighty. Now, let's get to the really important points. I'm bored of flat plains. Everything in my domain so far has been built on perfectly flat ground. I don't like it. I want some mountains and valleys. Maybe have a river flow through it, too. No flatness allowed. We can do that, right? The blonde smiled at the particles, but they had an unexpected reaction. Standing still for a moment, they then began moving from left to right a few times. Eh? She honestly hadn't seen that coming. You don't want to? Noticing how Sophia sounded disappointed, the particles turned into a frenzy, seemingly not knowing what to do. That's not it? The tiger tilted her head, netting another nod from them. Is there a problem with my suggestion? They kept nodding. What could it be? She tried to figure out what was going on. Wait, creating a few hills and all that should be easy, but is it the size of the planned forest? Is my internal magic authority not enough? The particles got lively again and returned to energetically nodding. Unexpected. As she was quite proud of the amount of authority she had over magic, this was quite the blow for her. How much do you need? 2 times? No reaction. 3? Still nothing. Huh? 5 times? That can't be. The particles, however, still seemed utterly unimpressed by her offer. It can't be something like 10 times, right? Judging by their reaction, it seemed to be exactly that, though. Hearing the number 10, the pink and purple particles returned to being lively. That can't be. She was honestly shocked. How's that supposed to ever work? Wait. It seemed like Sophia had an idea. Does it have to be at once? My authority regenerates super fast, so can I offer you everything I have, go back to the regular world, reset my authority with, fresh magic, and return to offer it inside my domain? Then, I do that as many times as needed to make the perfect forest. Tilting her head, she then waited for the reply of the particles. They stopped moving for a couple of seconds, then turned wild, as if having a conversation between themselves, and then went back to staying still. A few moments later, they seemed to have come to a conclusion as they began to move up and down like many times before. By the way, just to be curious, how much authority is needed to add a natural-looking sky over the forest? I really don't like the white, after all. She pointed up at the bright white sky there currently was. It surely isn't something ridiculous as needing triple digits of my authority, right? However, the particles just did nothing and stood still. Why aren't you replying? She had a bad feeling about it. It actually is in the triple digits? Surprisingly, the ambient magic started moving from left to right to deny it. Don't scare me like that. What actually is it? Something like 50 times? That's still way too much, but it could work. The particles simply kept moving from left to right. Eh? Sophia looked confused. Could you decide on a stance, please? Wait. Her eyes grew wide. You went silent when I joked about it being ridiculous, but also said no when I asked if it's triple digits. You also said no when I mentioned a high number below that. Don't tell me you said no to the triple digits, because it's more than that. Unfortunately, the magic particles stopped moving sideways and returned to nodding. I don't even want to know the actual number. I think I'll get depressed. She had a bad feeling about it. Anyway. Sophia had a strong need to change the topic. There's one more request I have for the forest. Do you all see how the trees only come in different shades of lighter and dark pink? She gestured at the forest in front of them. The ambient magic paused for a moment and then went back to moving up and down. Great! I want more variety, though. Pink should be dominant, but I want various other cute colors, though. Various shades of purple, violet, lilac, and white, too. On top of that, the different colored trees should blend into each other. Like, no light pink right next to a deep purple. The color and shade should slowly change in the area. Compared to the other things, that one should be easy, right? Contrary to her expectations, the pink and purple particles stopped moving, though. Why? The blonde didn't like that. Wow, what a reality check. I thought I was absolutely overpowered, but I guess I was too cocky there, huh? Sophia awkwardly scratched her cheek. Is it because the extra colors are mutations? Mira said you need to infuse plants with a lot of raw magic for them to happen, so? Trying to figure out what was going on, she tried to make a guess. Immediately after, magic returned to its usual rhythm, moving up and down. I'm tired already, and we haven't even started yet. It was too much for her. Afterward, Sophia needed a short break to recover from the shock and to come up with the optimal way to build her dream forest while not having even slightly enough authority to do so. Chapter 060, Navigating Around Limitations. Sophia took the day off from exploring to start working on her cherry blossom biome inside the domain. Instead of doing it herself, though, she decided to play together with the sentient part of magic because she wanted to do it together with them. The pink and purple particles seemed really happy that the tiger actively involved them in her plan, but once they made her understand that she needed a lot more authority to bring her plans to life. Well, this sure was unexpected. The blonde was right in front of the patch of cherry blossom forest she rescued and put in her domain. The ambient magic particles were also still dancing around her while seemingly having a lot of fun. You lot said that I can pay in installments, right? She scratched her cheek. As in, offer all of my authority by releasing raw magic, leaving my domain, having it reset, and repeating those things, right? The tiger waited for a moment and then watched the particles moving up and down. That's going to be a lot of trips. Alright, let's get started. While saying so, countless pink and purple particles rose from all over her body as she was releasing her internal magic to the environment. The particles immediately joined the others, and the density in the area noticeably increased. This was about 95% of my authority, and I really need to do this like 15 times more? Unsurprisingly, the ambient magic just moved up and down, the newly joined one included. Fine. Giving up while shrugging, Sophia then opened a portal and disappeared through it. Whoa. The tiger returned to the original cherry blossom forest in the mountain range and got a brief surprise there. Before, when she borrowed the patch of the forest to put in her domain, she left some of her raw magic behind in the hope of fixing the hole she made. It worked. It had already completely regrown, and it was denser than ever. On top of that, in the very middle, a huge weeping cherry that was around 100 meters wide had grown. It looks great. She liked it a lot. I should give that one to Fenny and Ari for their project. It would fit so well in the middle of a lake. Once it grows with magic, it should become even wider, too. Saying so, she opened a portal around the big tree and let it disappear. Then, the tiger waited around 20 minutes for her authority to fully reset before returning to the domain herself. I'm back. Sophia returned to the area with the patch of cherry forest inside her domain and cheerfully greeted the magic particles there, who happily swirled around her in return. Someone's looking forward to it even more than I do, huh? She smiled over how energetic they looked. Not wasting any time, she then quickly released all of her internal magic before returning to the mountain range once more. Ugh, I can't wait for the finished product, but it's so boring. The tiger was on her 5th trip to the mountain range when she let out a sigh. It's taking forever, too. There has to be a way to cheese this, right? She tilted her head while looking at the portal right in front of her. Wait a moment, do I even have to go back and forth? She then moved just her hand and arm into the portal while the rest of her body stayed behind in the original cherry forest. Raw magic doesn't seem to cross the portal on its own, but if I release it through my hand on the other side, my authority should still recover while doing it, right? Okay, let's go and have a look. After having released her magic through the portal while simultaneously regenerating it for around half an hour, Sophia wanted to find out if it was working and decided to check. Wow, so sparkly. Arriving in her domain, the blonde was overwhelmed by the sheer amount of pink and purple particles around her. Yes. She raised her fist high in the air. It's working. There's definitely more of you now. I'm not sure if it's as effective as going back and forth, but that's not important. Let's go and catch Maya. Sounding highly motivated, she then left through yet another portal. Why are we here? Sounding rather confused, Maya looked around in the living room of their mansion in the capital while tilting her head before facing Sophia next to her. I need to kill a few hours, and so I wanted to spend time with my favorite girl while doing so. The blonde smiled at her. Ah. She still looked confused, but she liked what she was hearing. Unfortunately, you were the only one available, though. Her mood was so good that she got the overwhelming urge to tease her cat. Oi. Maya really didn't like that. I'm just joking. She was still smiling. Come on, you have to admit that it was a good one. MRNG. While looking ever so slightly proud, she refused to admit it. Again, why are we here? I thought you were working on your cherry blossom forest? I am. The blonde just nodded. I just don't have enough magic authority to finish it. That's why I need to take some breaks. Ah, I see. The catgirl nodded. Wait. You? She paused for a moment. You don't have enough magic? You? She had to say it a couple of times. What are you up to? You should have seen how surprised I was when I found out. She continued to have trouble believing how insignificant her powers really were. Anyway, don't worry, it's nothing dangerous. It's just that I'm totally overdoing it with the scale of things. Ah, the usual, I see. Maya just nodded along. So, for the third time or so, why are we here? She still had no idea why the two were back in the capital and the mansion's living room. I need to pump some more raw magic or authority into my planned cherry blossom area inside the domain. While saying so, the tiger opened a portal and put her arm into it. I need to stay like that for a couple of hours to transport my authority into there while also recovering it at the same time on this side. If I recover and reset my authority in the domain, there wouldn't be any extra magic, after all. Is it okay if I just pretend to have understood what you just told me? The catgirl looked more confused again. Of course. Sophia nodded. Long story short, I take magic from here and put it into the domain, using my body as the transport. Sure. She also nodded. I still don't get why we're here. We need to have fun together for a couple of hours, but we can't do the usual because I can't use my body much, so I was thinking of doing a TV marathon. Sophia pointed at the big TV they had in the living room they had gotten the first time they visited Earth last year. Do you remember? Before we left the capital, we started a series we both liked, but we couldn't finish it, as Steph and Chloe were physically unable to stay in the capital because they were going insane from us near hibernating? Yeah. How about we get comfy on the sofa and cuddle a little? I can easily do that much with only one arm available, and we watch a whole season or two in one go? I'll go make popcorn. Once she understood the plan, the catgirl was on board really quickly. Exactly what I wanted to hear. Once they were ready, and had fresh popcorn, the duo got comfortable on a sofa in the living room. It took a little moment to find a good spot because Sophia had a portal attached to herself that ate half her arm, but as Maya simply cuddled to her other side, it hadn't been much of an issue. The only downside was that both arms of the tiger were preoccupied, one being in the portal and the other used as a pillow, so she needed the catgirl's help with the popcorn and had her feed her whenever she wanted some. For some reason, she didn't seem bothered about it, though. Maya just could have shifted her body a little to free the blonde's other arm, but she simply didn't want to at that time. The couple enjoyed each other's company and the TV show for many hours over the rest of the day and had a great time together. However, the two had some slight trouble concentrating on the season finale as the longer they were watching, the more busy they had gotten with each other instead. Once it had gotten dark in the capital and the TV series, among other things, finished, the couple returned to the domain, and Sophia headed back to the spot where she was preparing her cherry blossom forest. Well, good thing you only need one hand for very many things. Smiling broadly, the tiger happily exited the portal. And none at all for WWOAH. She immediately froze once she noticed what was going on. Stepping out of the portal, her entire vision was instantly and completely covered in pink and purple magic particles. They were so dense that she could neither see the forest nor even the slightest bit of her all-white default domain. Wow, it definitely worked. She needed a moment to let it sink in. How do you even deal with this? Afterward, Sophia took another small break to think of a way to continue from here on.